Now, I'm really excited about today's conversation because we're going to find out if there is a formula to winning a Grammy. Okay. As you can see, we've got Grammys on the table. He's won 3 Grammy Awards, has been nominated for 5, has won 9 Summer Awards, and is incredible. And I'm sure there are tons and tons of awards I'm not mentioning and so many more to come. The one and only Wouter Kellerman.
So my first album, I worked for years on it. We mixed it here.
You've been, I think, playing now every single day for 35 years.
No, for like 50. More than 50 years.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah. To get a Grammy, there is a formula.
What is the formula?
Yeah, there is a formula. The one most important thing is to make this beautiful music.
Yeah.
That is, every split second has to be exquisite. Like, I remember the one album, I spent 5,000 hours just on one album.
Jeez.
And that was 2 years every day.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
How did the collaboration with Nomle Wozikote and Zix Bantwini happen?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story because so now I'm looking to do some local collaborations.
Nice.
And go maybe do a different genre.
We're all about sharing the facts and teaching the tricks. Let's talk all things about music, the life of music. Let's engage about the rhythm. Let's talk about our passion for melodies, sound, and those beautiful classics. Let's get educated about these decibels we oh so dearly love. On this podcast, we talk about these politics. Welcome to Music Politricks.
Dumela, exe, nagalina ke nabusi, baba kulu, baba dese, bariki the Queen of Pitori, and welcome to another episode of Music Politricks. This is where we learn everything there is to learn where music is concerned. We are here to share all the facts and, of course, learn all the tricks from our experts. A big shout out to everybody on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts who's showing us some love. Vic, make sure to review the podcast and, of course, tell us what you think and the kind of conversations you'd like to have on the platform. A big shout out to everybody on YouTube as well. We see you. We appreciate you. Please do the same. Comment and tell us the kind of conversations you would love to have on the platform. Now, I'm really excited about today's conversation because we're going to find out if there is a formula to winning a Grammy. Okay, because what's interesting about today's guest is that, I mean, I'm sure he could have chosen to do quite a couple of things. I mean, perhaps representing South Africa at the Olympics via table tennis. We don't know. or maybe he could have even decided that, you know what? I'll just be an electronic engineer for the rest of my life. But that's not what he decided, of course, because as you can see, we've got Grammys on the table. He's won 3 Grammy Awards, has been nominated for 5, has won 9 Summer Awards, and is incredible. And I'm sure there are tons and tons of awards I'm not mentioning and so many more to come. The one and only Wouter Kellerman. Thank you so much for coming through.
Hi, Boosie. I'm so happy to be here and to be chatting to you.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well. Hey, I mean, wait, like to think that, okay, we were sitting here, there's Grammys over here, but at one point you were number 1 at UJ, the number 1 table tennis player. Hey? Wow.
Yeah. I started playing the flute when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
I loved it from the first day. So when I left school, I wanted to study music, but we didn't have money for me to go to university.
Sure.
But my other talent was maths. And so I was offered a bursary to study engineering.
Yeah.
So I did that at UJ. But then at UJ, I kept on playing my flute every day. So I won the talent festival, the UJ Talent Festival
That's
at
so
the time.
cool.
But I also started playing table tennis at age 10. My dad got me in it and I started playing league. And so I was the number 1 table tennis player at UJ and represented UJ. But, table tennis is at my school where I was, table tennis and music was not really the coolest thing you could do.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the only boy who took music as a subject at school. And it wasn't rugby or cricket. So I wasn't cool at all.
Okay. And hey, man, you're cool now.
Yeah, now these Grammys help a little bit.
But tell me also, because you're saying music at 10 years old, but there's a specific concert that you actually went to, that your parents took you to. Tell me more about that concert and how it really grew an attachment to you and the flute.
Yeah, my mom and dad took us to a symphony concert and asked us, my brother and I, my two sisters were too young at that stage, but asked us which instruments we'd like to play.
Yeah.
So he chose the clarinet, and I also liked the idea of expressing myself with my breath. It's like natural, like talking or singing.
Sure.
And so I chose the flute because it just looked like an interesting instrument. I didn't really get the sound that day.
Yeah, it's not easy to play.
Yeah, and then my mom rented a flute.
Okay.
And because she was not sure whether I'm going to carry on with it, and then my teacher was sick on the first day.
Oh, snap.
So, and my mom was like, we can't put this flute together because you might break it.
Okay.
So every day I would I'll go open the case and look at the flute and wonder, what would this sound like? How will it feel?
Yeah.
And then by the time I had my first lesson, I was so raring to go.
Oh, man.
And that first teacher was incredible. She was so encouraging.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
I just flew off, the first day I came back and played for hours, and it was just a thing. I just enjoyed it from the first moment.
And what is she taking you through at that first lesson?
Well, I learned classically, so she would really insist on me reading. So I wasn't allowed to just play anything.
Yeah.
I had to read from the music sheets, and I would like memorize the piece so I wouldn't have to read.
Okay, cool.
But then she'll just switch notes and catch me out, and then I learned to read very, very well.
Yeah.
But then later on, when I wanted to cross over from classical to more world music and roots music, I didn't know how to improvise.
Okay.
I had no idea how to improvise because everything in music was read. So that was a whole new chapter for me.
And what made you decide that okay, you don't necessarily want to be on the classical, more formal side of things?
Well, in my house, there was only classical music. And there was one Mary Makeba album.
Yeah.
And I loved that album. And when my mom went off to work, the lady who looked after me played only African music the whole morning.
Okay.
So I had always had that curiosity and that love for different roots music. And then as I grew up, I got interested in flamenco and tango and Irish music, Celtic influences. So, but yeah, I took a long detour away from music because I studied engineering.
Yeah.
And I had to work back. I ended up working in the coal mines.
Yeah.
And didn't last long there. Then I started my own engineering software company.
Yeah.
And then I decided to follow my passion and become a full-time musician. And then 6 months later, my money had run out. So I went back to engineering.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I started a young family. And when my wife and I split up, I got custody over the kids. So now I was the taxi dad and the homework.
Sure.
And I couldn't travel. I couldn't tour.
Yeah.
So it was just impractical to be a full-time musician. So I ended up waiting 20 years for my kids to grow up, still playing the flute every day.
Wow.
And honing my craft, training, getting better. And then when I was 44, my daughter finished university, my son finished school, and finally I had the opportunity. Things were a whole lot cheaper.
Wow.
And then I went for it.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. And it's so interesting to hear that this happened at 44 because we tend to think that, geez, we need to have it all together by the time we are 18. And what is the reality of that?
Yeah, a lot of musicians will say, well, I'm 35 already, and I haven't made it yet, so maybe I must stop.
Jeez.
Then I explain to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about perseverance.
Yeah.
And obviously the passion that burns inside you, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the engineering and the rational side.
Sure.
But my passion is the music.
Yeah.
And when you hear a beautiful song, it reminds you where you should be.
And what's interesting is, I mean, you're so successful as an engineer. So how would you then go about prioritizing playing the flute? You've been, I think, playing now every single day for 35 years.
No, for like 50, more than
My
50 years.
goodness.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Yeah, a few days, I'd probably maybe miss 10 days a year
Yeah.
that I don't play. But I play every single, it's like my meditation, it just grounds me to play. So even if nobody listened, I'd still do it for myself.
And in reality, how would you then now squeeze it into your daily sort of routine?
Sometimes when my business got really hectic, I would put the milk on the stove for my morning cereal. I'll play the flute, and if the milk is hot, I have to stop. But that 1 minute or 2 minutes a day is so much more than zero.
Yeah.
Because you just keep at it. You know, you don't lose. Because if you don't play for a few years, it feels like you have to start all over again. But if you in those 2 years maybe played 2 minutes a day, you don't feel like you're starting over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is actually so real. I mean, firstly, I've now discovered that you're extremely resilient.
Yeah.
You know, you are stubbornly passionate, which is really, really beautiful. But there's a conversation that you had with your children, and you were going into this direction.
Yeah, they thought, well, not just them, everybody thought I was having a midlife crisis. At 44, I'm running a successful engineering company.
Yeah.
I'm making enough money, only working a half day, because in the afternoons I'd spend with the kids, evenings I'd play some music. And they were like, why would you give up your engineering company? But I'd been waiting for so many years. So I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I was sitting around the kitchen table with my kids, and they said, Dad, what do you want to achieve? You know? And the first thing I thought of was a Grammy nomination.
Wow.
Because, you know, in the film world, there's the Oscars and the Golden Globes and the Cannes Film Festival. But in the music world, there's only the Grammys. And it's the one award that just says, you know, this is it. It's the major award. And when I mentioned it, I felt shy to mention it because it's such a cheeky thing to even mention.
It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, you a Grammy, and it just seemed like an impossible, you know, thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we started off playing, and then once I started listening to some of the Grammy nominees, then I realized we are musically here in South Africa, we're right there.
Yeah.
We actually have the cultural richness, we have the talent.
Yeah.
Musically, all these years, we've been right up there.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then I realized it's not such an impossible musically.
Yes.
I knew that musically.
Yes.
And so my first album, I worked for years on it. We mixed it here. And then at the time, Norah Jones had released her big album, Come Away With Me, that won 8 Grammys, sold 35 million copies. And I thought that whoever mixed that album, because I loved the album, I should get him to mix my album.
I love it so much.
And I was like, okay. So I spoke to Johnny Clegg, who was a friend of mine, and I said, you know, this engineer, his name was Husky Hoskins, he's an Icelandic engineer based in LA.
Okay.
And I said, do you know how I could get a hold of this guy? And he says, well, let me speak to my engineer, Chad Blake, who's also a very famous engineer, also Grammy winning. And he knew Husky. So he put me in contact. So I sent Husky the album, and I said, would you possibly mix this? And I just thought it was a wild, like a very also cheeky suggestion. It's my first album. He's the world's best engineer. You know, do I think he's going to mix my album? And then he wrote back and he says, I love this music.
Wow.
And he says it's already so well mixed that I don't think I can do it much better, but I'll have a go at it if you like. So I went over there to LA, flew over there, and spent a week with him mixing this album.
Insane. Was there any time in your life where you're like, okay, well, this is this really happening? Or you just need to pinch yourself?
Yeah, no, it was just it was crazy. And then Tulsi, my business partner and manager and friend, she was there with us, and she's like, Aski, would you mind showing us a Grammy? Because we haven't seen a Grammy.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, let me just see, where did I put it again? And then he came back and he had sawn off this part for a sound experiment.
No way.
We couldn't believe it. It was so unimportant to him that
Wow.
and that's the only one. He'd won a few, and that's the only one he could find.
So he doesn't even know where the others are. That is so wild.
Yeah, and so I came back with this beautifully crafted album.
Yeah.
And I was ready to take the world by storm. And then I went to all the major labels, posted them the CD, made appointments with the A&R managers.
Yeah.
And then let me see who I can partner with. Nobody wanted a white middle-aged flute player.
And that's insane because of what the album did at a later stage.
Yeah, so nobody was interested. I remember arriving at the one record label, and the guy says to me, Wouter, we love the music, we love you, we think you're amazing.
The Dreamstream studio in Randburg is a full-service studio on Bromfisher Drive. It's perfectly suited for podcast, music recordings, and general video recordings. Backed up by an experienced editing and production team means you can walk in, record, and walk out knowing that everything will get done as you require. Our mobile gear ensures we can cover your video and live streaming needs on location too. We got the cameras, the lights, and the action to make you and your brand shine. Contact us now, studio@dreamstream.co.za, and we'll make it happen. Dreamstream, a place to create yourself.
But it's just not our thing. And I looked on his desk, and there was my CD still in the plastic. And he hadn't even listened, just being middle-aged, not as sexy as I used to be.
And it's like, wow.
And playing the flute
Hey.
was enough for them to say, no, we're not gonna release this. So we eventually found a smaller company who was willing to take the risk.
Okay.
And then we went for the release party, we went to UJ.
Nice.
And we didn't know anything, so we booked 3 nights at the UJ Theatre.
Okay.
Not knowing that you don't book 3 nights, even if you're a well-known musician.
Sure.
You book 1 night.
And then
You never sell out 3 nights in a row, even the well-known musicians.
sure.
So, but I booked 3 nights, and then we had to go and put pamphlets on cars. Joy of Jazz was happening at the time. So we just printed more than 10,000 pamphlets one by one and worked at it. But that first album did pretty well. It got very good reviews. I think Citizen gave it 9 out of 10.
That's phenomenal.
And it was nominated for a SAMA, and the DVD that we shot at the theatre won my first SAMA.
Yeah.
So we were off to the races a little bit. you know.
Yeah.
It was just, we had to hustle every step of the way.
And this can only mean that you are actually very, I would say, you know a lot where music business is concerned, because a lot of what you had to do yourself with your business partner is you being involved in the business of your own music.
Yeah, so that's the big thing we realized after a while, because my first 4 albums are actually similar quality than all my other albums. I've always been obsessed with quality.
Yeah.
And my motto is, if you can imagine it better, redo it. So and you can always imagine it better.
Yeah.
So I would just redo it and redo it and redo it and drive everybody crazy. So the music quality was the recorded music quality.
Yeah.
And from my first album, you know, we recorded in studio, and I sat with the engineers while they edited the recordings, and I'm like, this is not good enough. I want to take more time recording, taking takes, and more time editing. And then I was watching how he used Logic, and I just went home, bought Logic.
And became obsessed.
Yeah, and started doing all my own editing. And so that's the one thing we did right from the start.
Yeah.
But we didn't do the music business well from the start.
Because it's a constant learning process.
Yeah, we didn't know. And as musicians, you know, you want to make music.
Yeah.
But what we discovered over the years, there's not much point in making this beautiful music that nobody hears.
Yeah.
You know, you have to really spend as much time on the business of music as you do on the music. What
are some things that you realized business-wise that you could have done better and did better over time?
Promoting the album. So those days, you know, for example, in the Grammy world, there are 13,000 Grammy voting members.
Insane.
So these are all musicians, engineers, producers. They are creatives. They're all over the world, but mostly in the US. So, and there's more than 20,000 entries every year. So now nobody's going to go sift through all that music to find your album.
Yeah.
You know, you might have the best album, but nobody will know that you have the best album.
Absolutely.
So you're not going to get a vote from them. So it's your job to make sure they know about the music.
Okay.
So we started touring the US. You know, went from town to town, slept on couches, made it happen, made so many phone calls trying to book, you know, venues.
Okay.
And, even if we didn't have a concert in a town, we'd meet everybody, all the musicians in that town, and at lunch, I'll just get up, ask the restaurant to put on the music and play flute for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just play a song so that people know. Yeah. Then people started asking me to collaborate because they know, you know. And so we went through that process. And, you know, that was before social media much, you know. So now it's actually a little bit more accessible to do well.
Yeah. And look, also bearing the fact that you've done so much of the work prior to the existence of social media. So I can imagine that also just works to your advantage.
Yeah. But I mean, we were a bit slow to, and also because I have a niche, more niche market.
Yeah.
It took us a while. We just kept on trying, and we knew nothing. And we still feel like we know nothing.
Jeez.
You know, we're still learning. Even as a flute player, it feels like I'm learning every day. It feels like I'm starting today. No, I'm not like starting, but it's like a constant learning process.
Sure, it's like a hunger for knowledge.
Yeah.
And to know more and to do better.
That's musically, and then business-wise, it's a constant hustling. The hustle culture.
Yeah, we know that part very well. We know that part quite well.
Yeah.
Okay, and what did you do right for you to get that first nomination? Because I can only imagine, I mean, 5 nominations later, there were some things that you saw that worked that, of course, maybe you keep doing again because you know that they work. But with that very first Grammy nomination, what were you doing right?
Yeah, so to get like you were saying, what the formula is to get a Grammy, there is a formula.
What is the formula?
Yeah, there is a formula. The one most important thing is to make this beautiful music.
Yeah.
That is, every split second has to be exquisite and perfect, because I'm also I'm one of the 13,000 Grammy voting members, and people send me their albums, and most of it, not enough care has been taken, because people go to the studio and they do whatever they can do. They do a bit of editing, they put it out, but something's out of tune. The production is not perfect. They don't take, and then they don't want to redo everything.
Oh, snap.
But I'll just redo it, and I'll spend thousands of hours on an album.
Yeah.
So that's the most important number one step.
Music,
the
musicality. The
Yeah,
music.
because even if you do all the promotion, if you don't have the product to back it up, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot.
Sure.
Because now you're telling people about your music, they go, okay, let me listen, and then it's not good. And they're not giving you next time, and they're not going to give you another listen.
That's true.
So you have to make sure the music that's the number one thing.
Got it.
But the second thing is you have to make sure that the Grammy voting community, because you voted by your peers, other musicians, you have to make sure they know about your music.
And how do you make sure of that? Because do you know who they are?
You don't. There's no list. There's no list of Grammy voting members, unfortunately.
That's tricky.
Yeah. But you know they're all musicians.
Sure.
So you just reach out. You make sure all the other musicians in the US, or as many as possible, know about your music. You send them your music.
Yeah.
You do the social media. You tour.
Yeah.
You invite people to your shows.
Yeah.
You know, that's basically, and that's what we didn't do for the first 4 albums.
Ah, okay.
And then when we got the nomination, I did a collaboration this time with Ricky Kaj. He's an Indian producer.
Yeah.
And we both, I mean, that album just clicked. You know, that was, musically it was super strong.
Yeah.
And then we both pushed, and that year I did a show at Carnegie Hall in New York.
And you sold out 3 times.
Yeah, over the years. That was the first one. Yeah, it was, we pulled that off. We played the Grammy Museum. So this is, a lot of musicians come to those shows.
Yeah.
You know, if you play Carnegie Hall, you're going to get the public, but you also get musicians who come and listen who are interested.
I mean, Rolling Stones have sold out there. The Beatles have sold out there. Wouter Kellerman has sold out there.
Yeah, so that's basically to get to do everything promotional wise.
Okay.
That's the difference between that album and the previous albums.
Okay.
And it was myself and Tulsi and Ricky and his wife, Varsha. We were all full-time promoting, you know, and doing everything. And then we became number 1 on the Billboard charts for new age music.
Nice.
So that helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helped. And because we started selling well over there, we were number 1 on some of the radio charts.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, as well. And so all those things gathered the momentum.
Yeah. And one thing about you is I don't know how you choose who to collaborate with, you know. You just literally collaborate with such phenomenal people of different walks of life, musically and sort of in reality. How do you choose and decide that, okay, I'm going to collaborate with this artist?
Yeah, for me, it's about their voice, their musical voice. So I've got a very curious musical mind, so I listen very widely. But if someone has a expressive way of making music that really touches me, then for me, they a candidate like this last album that won the 3rd Grammy. My 2 collaborators are Chandrika Tandon, who's an Indian singer. She sings mantras, very peaceful, and Eru Matsumoto, a Japanese cellist. So Chandrika and I, 10 years ago, we started sending each other music, part of the Grammy process.
Okay.
You know, and I always loved what she did. And I just kept it in the back of my mind. And next time I went to New York, she lives in New York. I had a coffee with her, and next time, so we just got to know each other slowly over the years. In the meanwhile, Eru, the cellist, and I were both a guest on an album called Mythologies, a classical album. Both guesting on that album, and that album ended up winning a Grammy. We didn't win Grammys because we were guests. We weren't the main artist. But when I heard her performing the cello, I was like just blown away because my favorite artist of all time is a cellist. It's Jacqueline Dupre, classical cellist. And it felt to me like, and Jacqueline Dupre is passed away already, but it felt like her spirit came through Eru and was channeling. And I was like, wow, she just blows my mind. And then we met at the celebration party for that album.
Yeah.
And then a year later, she approached me and she said, let's do an album together
That is so cool.
of healing music.
Yeah, because I also understand the cello is one of the saddest musical instruments.
Yeah, it's just it's a beautiful counterfoil to my flute sounds, which is higher, and the deep sounds of the cello.
Yeah.
So when she approached me, I immediately thought of Chandrika, and I thought, let the three of us do it together. And it's been amazing because it's South Africa, Japan, and India.
Yeah.
And it just shows that music can build bridges across cultural lines.
Yep.
You know, and it. So all of us were before that we were kind of on the same mind of making positive music, sending positive energy.
Okay.
But then this album was specifically targeted to make healing music.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
How did the collaboration with Nomncebo Zikode and Zakes Bantwini happen?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story because when I heard Nomncebo on Jerusalema, I was like, this voice.
The Dreamstream studio in Randburg is a full-service studio on Bram Fisher Drive. It's perfectly suited for podcast, music recordings, and general video recordings. Backed up by an experienced editing and production team means you can walk in, record, and walk out knowing that everything will get done as you require. Our mobile gear ensures we can cover your video and live streaming needs on location too. We got the cameras, the lights, and the action to make you and your brand shine. Contact us now, studio@dreamstream.co.za, and we'll make it happen. Dreamstream, a place to create yourself.
Cannot be ignored, hey?
This voice. She's got such a rich voice.
Yeah.
And I also thought that will be so beautiful with the flute.
Yeah.
And so I asked Tulsi, well, can you get hold of Nomncebo? And we couldn't get hold of her. We went online and searched. We couldn't find her.
Okay.
But before that, Zakes and I would run into each other like twice a year.
Okay.
And then we were like, let's do something together. And okay. And it never happened.
Yeah.
So then what happened was we went to the Salmas that year, and I saw Zakes and his manager, Sibo. And I mentioned to them that I'm looking for Nomncebo. And Sibo says, well, I'm a manager.
Oh, wow.
Because he was managing both Zakes and...
okay.
He was one of her managers,
Okay.
you know. So he says, I can put you in contact with her, but why don't the three of you do it together? And I'm like, that's a great idea. And then we decided we'll do it together. And then I thought, well, if we're going to do something, we might as well enter it for the Grammys.
So you guys had the Grammys intentionally embedded in your mind prior to putting the music together?
No, we thought of doing the song first.
Okay.
And then we thought, if we're going to do it, we must as well enter it.
Sure.
There's no, you don't lose anything by not entering it.
Yeah.
But then the Grammy deadline for entering was the next day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And this is a very competitive category. It's the best global music performance. It's a tough category. So, but I thought, well, let's enter it. But you had to enter it the next day, end of August, but you had until end of September to release the song.
Okay.
But
cool.
you just had to enter it the next day.
Okay, cool.
So I said to them, we can enter it, but we just need to decide on a name so we know what to call it.
Sure.
So we decided on Bayete.
Yeah.
And not knowing what the song is going to be at all. We just decided on the name first so that we could enter it.
Yeah.
So we entered it, and then the next month we worked super hard to get, Zakes sent me an idea. I sent them lots of ideas.
Yeah.
Which didn't really, it's always it takes a while to find a sweet spot where, and then and I'm quite used to adapting to other people's
Okay, cool.
things because that's what I do all the time.
Sure.
So it worked better that they send me stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay,
So
cool.
Zach sent me a beat and a little melody, and we sent that to Nomcebo, and she just added some vocals, and then I went and I worked with JB Arthur, co-producer,
Okay.
and we added the Maskandi guitar, I added flutes, we recorded backing vocals,
Yeah.
put the whole song together, and I thought it's not going to work. We didn't think, like JB and I were sitting there, this is not going to work, but then miraculously it just kind of fell into place, and I was so happy with the song. I was like, wow, we really did something super special here. Then we entered it, and in the first round also entered was Ed Sheeran with Fireboy, their song Peru.
Yeah.
That was entered.
That was a huge hit.
Huge hit. And Justin Bieber had a collab as well that he had entered.
Yeah.
So I said to Tulsi, the competition, Burna Boy, everybody, I said, I don't think we're going to get this, but I'm glad we entered it.
Yeah.
It's just good to be entered because people listen to your song to consider it, at least they know about you.
Sure.
And to our huge surprise, and Zaxon and Clipper didn't think at all we're going to get there, and I didn't think so. And but we did a lot of promoting.
Yeah.
We pushed it out. We made the music video. We put it out there. We let everybody know that we know that this is out there. We sent. Tulsi and I worked super hard to make sure everybody at least knows about the song,
Sure.
so that they can make an informed decision.
And indeed, they did.
And then in that first round, we got nominated ahead. Ed Sheeran and Fireboy didn't make their hit, didn't make it. Justin Bieber, and we were nominated with Burna Boy.
Yeah.
And in the final round, it was Burna Boy's hit, Last.
Yeah.
Huge
Massive.
hit.
Massive.
But the instruction to the Grammy voting community is vote on the musical quality only. Don't look at social media. Don't look at popularity.
Yeah.
Don't look at star power.
Yeah.
And they chose our song. They chose our song because I think it had a bit more depth.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more musically interesting.
Yeah.
And I love Burna Boy's song Last. It's very catchy.
Yeah.
But
and great sample also. Which worked for him.
Yeah. And but in the end, they decided they liked our song, and we couldn't believe it. Yeah, we were there on stage and receiving the Grammy.
I love it. I love it so much, and it's so interesting that you still mention the two things in terms of the formula of having a Grammy. You mentioned the musicality, and you still mentioned the promotion, even though the panelists, for lack of a better term, don't decide based on your popularity. It's always about the music.
It's always about the music, but if they don't know about your music, your job is to make sure they have enough information to make an informed choice.
Absolutely.
If they don't know about the music, you could have the best music. Like I felt many years I did have the best music.
Yeah.
And many times I felt someone got nominated who didn't have as good music.
Yeah.
And then I realized maybe people just didn't know about my music. And so it's a combination of the two.
100%. 100%. What does the future hold? I mean, we're waiting for the third Grammy, which is so exciting. But how's it looking on your side? I mean, how many more Grammys are we going to get?
Well, next year and the year after.
And the other year.
No, for me, what gets me up in the morning is just that new song that I'm thinking about, that new music. I hear a beautiful song and I'm going, I want to do something like this, but change that and change that.
Sure.
But I love that vibe or like that beat or I love this melody. And I want to do something like that, and I get inspired, and that's what drives me.
Yeah.
And once you decided to make the music, then it's your job to make sure to do the music justice, to make sure it gets out there, people hear it, and enter it for any award that you can. You know, make sure it's being considered, and that's the next process.
Sure.
But really, what drives me is the music, and the last few years I've been completely immersed in this album, so I haven't been able to say yes to many things.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking to do some local collaborations.
Nice.
And maybe do a different genre, and just song collaborations. At the moment, I don't have the bandwidth, the capacity to do a whole album.
Sure. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's too overwhelming. But I would love to do a few songs and just to collaborate and do maybe an Amapiano song.
Hey, that would be so cool.
An R&B or pop song.
Yeah.
Something a bit more commercial.
Sure.
Because this last album was very peaceful and kind of a niche. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. But exactly what form it will take, we'll figure out over the next few months.
Yeah, that is actually so cool. I think it would be so interesting to listen to you on various genres, you know. And as you're speaking right now, and the way you're such a perfectionist, I can't help but think of how Black Coffee approaches music, you know. Msaki was telling a story about how, like, Black Coffee has been sending the song back forever.
Yeah.
Forever. I mean, she would think that this is the one. I've given it my all, like this is the one. And he would send it back.
I'm the same.
He is such a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's every day there's more than 100,000, 80,000 songs, I think, that gets released. So your music better be interesting and beautiful. At least you have to absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Even if you love it, other people might not.
Sure.
So everybody listens differently. But I love Black Coffee and I love Msaki.
Yeah.
So I'd love to collaborate with either of them.
Oh, that would be so cool.
So, yeah, I met Black Coffee a while back and he said, send me some songs. So I don't know if it'll work, but I'll be sending a few ideas across. Yes. And yeah, I mean, he's got my utmost respect.
Yeah.
I love what he does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And but as we wrap it up, there are so many people and I can't even limit it to anybody in any genre, any person of any age, any person of anywhere in the world, you know. So many people, their ultimate goal is to at least even get nominated for a Grammy. What advice would you give to an artist who wants that sort of goal for themselves?
Yeah, it's exactly what I said. The first step, which most people don't take care of, is to spend the time and the effort to make the music beautiful.
Yeah.
People are not, like, I remember the one album, I spent 5,000 hours just on one album.
Jeez.
And that was 2 years every day for one album. And most people don't have the time because they're busy. So I don't think people spend the kind of effort that I do.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the first thing. And listen to it. You know, people send me this music and then you put your best foot forward, and then even the first 5 seconds there's an out of tune note or a badly mixed or just a production error.
Yeah.
Because on the musical side, everybody listens differently, so I might not enjoy it, but I can still recognize the quality.
Sure.
And that's how I listen. So if someone doesn't have, that's the first step. So it's just create something beautiful, special that it's going to live forever. And you want to be listening back 10 years from now and thinking, wow, you know, if you listen back to it and there's something that bothers you, fix it.
Yeah.
You know, but most musicians say, well, I can't listen back to my music because I hear all the mistakes. But I'm like, if there are mistakes, fix them.
It's that simple.
So when you listen back, there's nothing that bothers you.
Sure.
That's number one. But then the second one is you really, generally in the music world, you have to take care of the music business.
Yeah.
You know, you have to post on social media regularly.
Yeah.
You know, you have to do little videos. You have to, just go to music, I edit all my own I have my own microphone. If I don't take a good take today, I don't say, well, that's as good as it gets. I go to sleep tomorrow, I'll try again, and the day after, and the day after, and then I'll sit there and I'll edit it and try again. And so that's the one thing. But then you have to make sure it gets out there, and the 360, like, it's a kind of a victim mentality to say, there's no manager who looks after these things for me. I remember Black Coffee at his conference here, and someone asked, why aren't there more managers being trained? And he asked, do you have money to pay a manager?
Firstly.
Yeah, firstly. If you don't have money, work so
Yeah.
that you make money.
Absolutely.
So that you can pay the manager. Or if you can't pay manager, manage yourself.
Yes.
And it's very hard to do because it's like you have to do 2 jobs at the same time.
Yeah.
Both are full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Very hard to do, but it's doable.
Yeah.
So yeah, the management and the social media and the marketing, and when I perform, I take a very, very strong interest in the sound.
Yeah.
With someone who comes and listens, they don't think, if the sound's bad, they don't think the sound's bad. They think you're bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I listen, and I'm obsessed with sound. I make sure before the day that I've got a good sound engineer there, that they know what I need.
Yeah.
And so the business, music business in general, you need to take care of. And I know it's very exhausting, but it is possible.
Absolutely. And we can see the rewards of it being possible.
Yeah.
Love it. Wouter Kellerman, thank you so much for making the time. This has been so insightful. I hope we can have another conversation one day, because I'm sure that there's going to be so many other things that we'll be able to speak on. So thank you for making time.
Thank you, Boosie. It's so nice chatting to you, and I love your musically informed podcast, and I think you're on a beautiful trail to share the music. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. The one and only Grammy Award-winning darling, Wouter Kellerman. And of course, make sure to follow him on all the socials. If you would like to book the studio, perhaps you want to shoot your own podcast or maybe record your own music, make sure to send that important email. It is info@dreamstream.co.za, and make sure to follow Music Politricks everywhere on the social platforms. Kalina ke nna Busi, mara ba ba khulu ba ba dese, ba re ke the Queen of Pitori, re tlisa mapara miskat. We're outie! Thank you so much.
That was really easy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very
easy to talk to you.
It's very chilled. It's like just a conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is also like squeezing in some questions of other people that were asking other questions in a different episode. Because there are some, especially like a lot of musicians that I have on WhatsApp, they tend to ask that, oh, okay, did you ask something like this? And then I realize that, oh no, I didn't. But it always also goes with who is being interviewed. Like, who am I having the conversation with? I was speaking to a lawyer in my previous episode. So a lot of questions that people were actually asking were relevant for the lawyer because people are in trouble. People are in trouble and it sucks.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you've got a YouTube channel?
Yes, I've got more than 100 music videos on my YouTube channel.
Whoa.
And so, I use that to also broadcast South African new talent.
Wow.
So check it out. And if you're very stressed, the latest album is the perfect way to relax. So you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram. We also post TikTok.
Okay.
And Spotify, Apple Music.
Okay. And then everywhere it's just Wouter Kellerman.
Kellerman, yeah. Wouter.
Nice.
Kellerman.
It's so nice to be a brand, hey? Because you can just say Wouter Kellerman and everybody knows, yes. Wouter Kellerman, the Wouter Kellerman. Thank you so much for coming through once again. This is like such an off-air conversation. Mara le rata dilo, so it's all good. Thank you so much, Wouter.
Thank you for doing that.
This is so cool.